Well, now, that's more creative than he usually gets. Hey there, thank you for joining me on Alyssa Jean's Star Trek Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my top 20 favorite episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm fresh off of a complete binge watch of Deep Space Nine about a year ago. Deep Space Nine was really my first COVID binge. During the lockdowns, I would obviously end up binging a lot more things after Deep Space Nine, but most of it is fairly fresh in my head. It's about a year since I watched all of these episodes. And I'm going to talk about my personal favorite. And once again, as I say in all these videos that I do like this is my opinion, my personal favorites. Please feel free to share your favorites below. I'll just go ahead and warn you about a couple of episodes that are pretty popular and ranked highly on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and all that stuff that do not make my top 20. One of those is Way of the Warrior, the season 4 premiere, which I quite enjoyed. It was fine. I don't have anything against it. I just really did not like this whole sidestep with the Klingons when they had set up at the end of season 3 to really start exploring the invasion of the shapeshifters, the changelings, and the Dominion, and they kind of shoved that aside in order for this kind of dumb Klingon plot, if I'm being honest, where Gowron acts completely out of character, and I'm not going to get into all the details of why he acts out of character. He does. Just trust me on that. And so, Way of the Warrior is not in my top 20. Another one is Trials and Tribulations. I had fun with that episode. Very enjoyable. It's a tribute episode. So saying that that's one of the best episodes to me would be like saying that a Beatles cover band is one of the best bands of all time, or an Elvis impersonator is one of the best singers of all time. They're tributes. So as much as I enjoyed Trials and Tribulations, it's not one of my 20 favorite. What you will see in these 20 episodes is a lot of episodes that are related to two particular very strong serialized story arcs. There's the station takeover arc at the beginning of season 6, and really starts at the finale of season 5. And then, of course, the closing Dominion War story arc at the end of season 7. So you'll see quite a few episodes from those two story arcs, because where I think Deep Space Nine is really strong is in its serialization. And quite a few of other surprises will be thrown in there as well. So without further ado, let's start with the 20 through 11, which I'll do very quickly, and then we'll take more time to go through the top 10. So here we are with number 20. And at number 20, Past Tense Parts 1 and 2 from Season 3. I've always loved these episodes, despite the atrocious time travel logic. I've always liked the message and the optimistic ending. It is shockingly close to what life is like here in 2021, and we're 3 years away from when this is taking place. Let's just hope that things end as optimistically as they do in this episode. At number 19, the Season 2 3-part premiere, The Homecoming, Circle, and The Siege. By later Deep Space Nine standards, this isn't the best serialized story arc of all time. However, it was a pretty big deal at the beginning of Season 2, and in my opinion, really put Deep Space Nine on the map. At number 18 from Season 2, The Wire. Speaking of putting things on the map, this episode puts Garrick on the map in a truly great performance by Andrew Robinson. At number 17, Civil Defense from Season 3. An absolutely fun ride and one of my favorite Dukat episodes, as Dukat really gets his comeuppance in this episode. At number 16, Behind the Lines from Season 6, the first of several episodes in that aforementioned station takeover story arc from season 6 that will appear in my countdown, though this one didn't have a great Cisco storyline, which is why it's a little further back on my list, but the Odo and Kira storyline was really intense. It's the Odo Anakin Skywalker going to the dark side story, and poor Kira at the end of this. At number 15, A Call to Arms, the beginning of the station takeover story arc, which starts in the finale of season 5, and the best season finale before we would get to the series finale in season 7, in my opinion. And I will always remember the Dukat baseball scene at the end where Dukat holds the baseball and says he's sending a message, he will be back. At number 14, In Purgatory's Shadow and By Inferno's Light, a two-parter in season 5. I will always remember these episodes for the shocking twist that the Dr. Bashir we've been following for the past 5 episodes or so is a changeling, and the real Dr. Bashir has actually been held in captivity. This is also the reveal of Garrick's father and the death of Garrick's father as well. Great war-fighting Jim Hadar scenes. And, of course, the big twist that Gul Dukat has joined the Dominion and brought the rest of the Cardassians with him. At number 13, A Time to Stand, the season 6 premiere, and just as Call to Arms is the best season finale prior to season 7, I think this is the best season premiere overall, and it really gets us kickstarted into that Cardassian takeover story arc, and we start to realize, hey, this isn't going to be wrapped up in 2 episodes, this is going to go on for a while, and it was really, really exciting. At number 12, Rocks and Shoals from season 6, the very next episode after A Call to Stand, chronologically speaking. And this features a very intense trapped on the planet with the Jim Hadar storyline with Cisco, a big improvement over the previous season's episode, The Ship. And at number 11, The Visitor from season 4, the best Jake and Ben episode of all time, with a very emotional ending for poor old Jake. And now the top 10, starting with number 10. At number 10, Duet from season 1. The only entry to this list from season 1, as season 1 generally sucks, but this is a notable exception toward the end of season 1. It's an absolute up and down, back and forth thrill ride with only dialogue as we try to determine the true origin of this Cardassian prisoner, who at first is just a clerk, and then he's a wanted general, and then it turns out he actually was just a clerk who had himself surgically altered to look like the wanted general because of his guilt. He is just riddled with guilt because he was too afraid to do anything to stop the atrocities in the Cardassian occupation, particularly at Galatep. And this is a huge, huge character episode for Kira, as she learns for the first time in the series that Cardassians are people too, and that they also deserve compassion. It is one of the more powerful endings of any episode in the series, as this Bajoran guy kills Maritza, and Kira asks why, and he says he's Cardassian. Isn't that enough? And then Kira says, no, it's not, as tears stream down her face. A very haunting ending, and a very powerful one that would stay with Kira throughout the series as she continues to grow as a character.
We're going to take back Deep Space Nine, number 9.
At number 9, The Changing Face of Evil from season 7. And this is about the 4th episode into the Dominion War story arc at the end of season 7, and it's really when the Dominion War story arc starts to get going really well. It's a very ominous episode as the Breen have attacked Earth, and the Breen have these very powerful weapons that they don't know what to do about. The Defiant gets destroyed, although the Defiant does end up being rebuilt a couple episodes later, but still, it was a very ominous feeling when it happened. But honestly, what really puts this into the top 10 is that closing scene when Damar announces his defection. That is one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Trek, and certainly one of the most satisfying scenes to me personally. I was able to just keep rewinding it over and over again and watching it. I love it so much. He makes a very powerful speech about how the Cardassians have been conquered, and yet no shots had ever been fired against them. It gives you a lot to think about, because that historically in real life has been a way of regimes conquering their people, and it's kind of scary to look around at what could potentially happen in our own country right now. So it gives you a lot to think about. But what also really makes it more satisfying is the fact that he says he specifically targeted the Wayun making factory. And I love Wayun's reaction to it. I love the female changeling's reaction to it. I love Cisco's reaction to it. Just such a great scene. And that scene alone, if nothing else, would put this at number 9 on my favorite episode list.
Number 8.
At number 8, Tacking Into the Wind from Season 7. So this one is a couple episodes after Changing Face of Evil, and it really is the peak of the Dominion War story arc, as this episode is freaking amazing from beginning to end. So in my least favorite Deep Space Nine episode video, I named a couple of different episodes that had both an A plot and B plot that were really terrible. This is the polar opposite of that, as this has two plots that are freaking incredible. And I don't know if you can call one an A and one a B, because they are both very important plots. The first one has to do with Damar. This is Damar's coming of age moment. This is when he has to make the decision, is he truly going to stick up for Kira and the Federation and go with them, or is he going to go along with his Cardassian commander dude who wanted to betray Kira. And there's a great scene earlier in the episode where Damar has a line, something along the lines of, yeah, who would do this kind of thing to people? And Kira's like, yeah, Damar, who would do that? Then she later goes to Odo and says, oh crap, I shouldn't have said that. And Odo's like, you know what, if he's the person we think he is, he will make the right choice. And he does, in a very spectacular fashion at the end, with this Reservoir Dogs like Quentin Tarantino-esque showdown at the end. It was very intense and very satisfying when Damar does make the right choice. Great character development right there. And then we also have this awesome Klingon plot. I love this. Was so satisfying. I love this. How Worf basically finally says to Gowron, you know what? Fuck you. You're not going to be allowed to just let innocent Klingons die anymore just for your own political gains. And he challenges him and he defeats him, and Martok becomes the leader. I kind of wish that, like, in real life, people who are sacrificing others for their own political gain could also be challenged by somebody like Worf. I wish our system of government was as simple as the Klingons, but that's not how it works. But catharsis through this episode, as it was extremely satisfying. Oh, I loved it. I was cheering through that scene. At number 7, What You Leave Behind, the Season 7, and of course the series finale. This was such a satisfying ending in so many different levels. This, of course, is the end of the Dominion War, but I really appreciate how they didn't just say, oh, the Federation won, good guys win, bad guys lose, yay. They went into more of the complexities of war. And as much as people like to complain that Deep Space Nine is going against Roddenberry's vision, I personally would argue that this is very much promoting Roddenberry's vision, as it is demonstrating the complexities of war, just as a couple of the original series episodes did back in its first season. I really appreciated how Sisko, Martok, and the Admiral dumped out their blood wine. And that was the big thing they were building up to. Oh, we're going to have blood wine on Cardassia. But hey, look at all these innocent Cardassians that's been killed. This sucks. This is not a good thing. Really appreciated that. A great ending for all of the characters. Odo here saying goodbye to Kira was a tearful, emotional scene, and I like that he is going back to, help out the changelings, to reform the changelings, not just to destroy them all. I love that aspect of it as well. And I did actually really appreciate Sisko going off to the prophets, even though I don't really buy the retcon that he is half prophet. I thought it was a great ending, and I loved that they kept it open-ended for maybe a possible return in his own show on Paramount Plus. Please, please, please. And the only thing that is a big red mark on this episode, the reason why it is down at number 7 and not in my top 3, which it otherwise might be, is they just had to have this long-ass freaking Vic Fontaine scene in there, didn't they? With a horrible, cheesy montage of flashback scenes. I mean, come on, what is this? Like Cheers or something? Come on, Deep Space Nine should be better than that. So that is, unfortunately, a red mark, which knocks it down a few spots, because it otherwise would be in my top 3, but it's still, even with that, it is good enough to be number 7 on my favorite list.
Number 6? Number 6.
At number 6, Homefront and Paradise Lost from Season 4. This is a two-parter in episodes 10 and 11 of Season 4, and it took until that point to finally get around to following up to the end of Season 3, where Odo indicated that the changelings are already here in the Alpha Quadrant. And it's not just that the changelings have infiltrated the Alpha Quadrant and they could be anyone, anywhere, at any time, but it also, more importantly, shows us the exact wrong way to react to that. As certain people who just frankly want a power grab are using this as an excuse to grab that power by instilling fear in the people. And it is a very powerful message, and it would be very applicable just a few years after this episode aired, in the wake of 9/11, as the Patriot Act is passed and certain people in the government want to try to take away freedoms based on fear of terrorism. And Sisko makes a very powerful stand here. And also, I really love the chilling conversation that he has with a changeling disguised as O'Brien, when he's just like, there's only 4 of us on Earth, right? And just really driving home that the changelings could just sit back and let the Federation destroy themselves, much in the way as Damar was talking about at the end of Changing Face of Evil, that the Cardassians kind of just, let it happen to themselves. There was no shots fired. So I love that Sisko is able to thwart that, and it was a very satisfying ending to this episode, and it is number 6 on my favorite episode list.
We can jive with number 5.
And at number 5, it's crossover from Season 2. So if you were to ask me what my favorite Mirror Universe episode is, obviously I'd have to say Mirror Mirror. It's what started it all. It's the original. It's what captured my imagination as a kid. But if you were to ask me which Mirror Universe episode is objectively the highest quality episode, I would have to say this one, as it takes the original concept of the Mirror Mirror episode and makes it a little more complex and more interesting. For one thing, we see that the mirror universe has changed. The Terrans have been conquered, and now they're the slaves to the Alliance, which was an interesting twist on that original episode. But even more so, this episode does something that the original did not do, which is to have a character meet themselves. And I love the interactions between the two Kiras, and you can see the clear differences between the two universes, even though if at first the intended was pretending to be a little nicer than she actually was. And Nana Vista is pretty great in both roles. She really gets to ham it up as the intendant, and I really love it. This episode also has given me some great quotable lines over the years. One of my favorites is from the Mirror Garrick. Please don't make me use some foolish euphemism. She will be gone. I love that line. I've quoted it a lot. And then, of course, there's the one that I used at the very, very beginning of this episode. Well, now, that's more creative than he usually gets. From Cisco. Avery Brooks does Crazy very, very well. He's very good at it. So I absolutely love this episode. It's kind of a shame that they had to just keep doing more and more Mirror Universe episodes in Deep Space Nine, and they kept getting worse and worse as they went along. They could have honestly stopped right here, and I would have been happy, because this is a truly great episode.
Just the four of us. Wait a minute, that's not a thing. Whatever, number 4.
At number 4, Improbable Cause and the Die is Cast, the 2-part episode from season 3. So this episode does a lot of things for the franchise. First, it introduces the concept that the changelings are around and they can disguise themselves as other people. Before that would really get built up later on in the series, particularly in that season 4 episode that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Also, it's a follow-up to a previous episode called The Defiant that doesn't really make this list. It's an okay episode with Mr. Thomas Riker, where we first discover that the Obsidian Order is up to something. And here we find out what they are up to, and they have formed an alliance with the Tal Shiar, which to me made perfect sense because they're the same goddamn thing. When I first heard of the Obsidian Order, I was like, isn't that kind of a ripoff of the Tal Shiar? And it's the same thing. So it made sense. But it ended in a very unexpected way, as they are wiped out by the Dominion, who knew that they were coming all along because they had a changeling posing as a Romulan high up in the Tal Shiar ranks. But more so, this is a very great character two-parter, and it's really actually the first interactions that Odo and Garrick really have with each other, and it's pretty powerful. And this is where we learned that Garrick really actually does have a conscience, because prior to this, you didn't know, really. But you do learn a lot about Garrick in this episode, as well as Odo. So these episodes, I can't say enough about. They're absolutely phenomenal, and they are number 4 on my list.
Number 3, whee! Number 3.
At number 3, Favor the Bold and Sacrifice of Angels, the epic 2-parter that closes out the Cardassian Station Takeover story arc in season 6. So many wonderful things about this episode. We get the conclusion of the Odo almost going to the dark side storyline, and I love the connection that he and Kira have, and that's what prevails in these episodes. Also, we find out Quark has a little bit of a heart. He cares. That's kind of nice. And of course, there's this epic battle between the Federation and the Cardassians and the Dominion. And I love how it ends. I don't care what anyone says about Deus Ex Machina with the Prophets. It's not Deus Ex Machina because it's character development for the Prophets, which has ramifications moving forward. Now, I have to say, though, what I really love about these episodes and why they are up at number 3 is because of Mark Alamo and Gold Ducat. Mark Alamo is absolutely fantastic. mind-blowing in these episodes as he depicts Ducat's descent into madness. And let's be frank, I enjoy watching Ducat's descent into madness. While it is very, very sad that Cial, his daughter, has to die, who is a character that you do care about, Ducat did kind of get what he had coming to him. All throughout this, he is just so certain that he is going to win, and also that his daughter is going to love him, and everything's going to turn out beautifully for him, and it goes the exact opposite way. And it was so good to watch how Mark Alamo played this on the screen. And Ducat is just really one of my favorite characters in Deep Space Nine. And I almost included the episode Waltz, which happens later on in this episode, which shows Ducat as a complete madman, but it didn't quite make my top 20. But needless to say, I just love me some Gold Ducat.
Just the two of us. Number 2. No, wait, hold on. You mean the number 4 guy already did this? Oh, man. Okay, fine. Well, here's number 2.
At number 2, Visionary from Season 3. So I feel like I probably have this ranked higher than just about anyone else, but I really don't care. I absolutely love this episode. This is just one of my all-time favorite episodes in any series. So not just for the time travel, but we can start with the time travel because this is the type of time travel I prefer. The personal time travel, as I call it, when someone is traveling within their own life, even when they're traveling within a few hours. I find that to be a little more interesting than the historic time travel. We're going back in history and we're going to change something in the past, which is good too. I had past tense in this top 20, which is also good, but I prefer this kind of time travel because it tends to be more interesting. And this is one of the best examples of this type of time travel, as I absolutely love it, and I love Colmini in this episode, and I still find it so eerie that it ends up being the wrong O'Brien who goes back and things are just a little bit off for him. I just think that's so great. But going beyond the time travel, every character in this episode has their moments. Like, this is one of the underrated ensemble episodes, and they have their comedic moments. So this is what I was talking about in the beginning of my least favorite episode video, if you have seen that, when I was talking about an episode that exemplifies how you inject humor into an otherwise serious episode, so you don't need to do these ridiculous take me out to the holosuite episodes and crap like that, because they're so good at injecting humor into serious episodes. And this has one of my all-time favorite Odo lines when he says, "But I always investigate, Quark." And Dr. Bashir, well, who am I to argue with? Me. And Kira, one of the funniest moments in the episode is when Cisco is telling Kira before she's gonna meet with the Romulans, you could try being a little diplomatic, and Kira's like, "I'm always diplomatic," and then it goes right to her going, "God damn it, that's not fair!" And that's a gag that I don't always think works, but it really works really well here. And the chemistry between all of the characters is just so on point. This is just such a great ensemble episode. Just everything about it is top notch. It is just one of my favorite episodes in the entire Star Trek franchise. And, if not everyone appreciates it for the masterpiece that it is, that's fine. But it will always be number 2 on my all-time favorite Deep Space Nine episode list. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary individuals and people of all genders, it is time for my number 1 favorite episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Number 1, my favorite all-time Deep Space Nine episode, In the Pale Moonlight from Season 6, what else would it be? Well, I know there are some who don't appreciate Avery Brooks' overacting or don't like the device of him talking to the audience, but I don't mind his overacting. I actually think it's very charming and works well for the episode. And I think the device of him breaking the fourth wall and speaking to the audience works perfectly for this episode, as it really plays in well to the misdirect that this episode does, as it leads you to believe that what's going to happen here is that Sisko's going to fail and that he shouldn't have trusted Garrick because Garrick didn't come through for him, and the Romulans are not going to join the Federation against the Dominion. But it turns out that it's even worse than that. The Romulans are going to join the Federation, but at what moral cost? And I absolutely love this episode because it does what Deep Space Nine does best, which is to demonstrate not only the complexities of war, but the ugliness of war. If you're going to participate in a war, it's not going to be all, parades and heroes and wonderful things. It's not going to be any of that, really. It's not going to be what it looks like on TV. There's going to be crap like this that's going to have to happen because that is the very nature of war. So I defy anyone who says that this goes against Roddenberry's vision, because as I said earlier, this very much is in line with some of the early original series episodes that give similar messages that are showing you that war is ugly. And what an amazing Garrick episode. Come on, this is the best Garrick episode of all time. And I would also say, although not everyone might agree, the best Sisko episode too. I think this episode is perfection. I absolutely love it. One of the best episodes in the franchise. And it is my number one episode in Deep Space Nine. Thank you so much for joining me for my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine. If you have not already, please check out my favorite and least favorite videos for the original series and the Next Generation as well. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. You can do so by clicking on the link in the lower right hand corner of your screen right now. And then after you do that, go and please do check out my Star Trek Lower Decks weekly reviews, and check it out next week when I review the next episode of Lower Decks. And I will see you all real soon. Goodbye.